Welcome to the video. My name's Steven. In this video, we're going to be talking about how I 6x my revenue in 3 days. And it's not what you think. It's not like I'm going to sit here and tell you that I made more sales calls or I started a business or I did this thing online. Fuck that. I didn't do any of that stuff. This is very nitty gritty and this is applicable to everybody. So, and yeah, there's not going to be a bunch of edits in this video either. It's like make it look super cute and keep your dopamine running the whole time. I'm trying to teach you something and I want to help you out. So if that's what you need, go fucking watch TikTok because that's not what we're here for. We're here to learn and to make something good happen. So that's what I'm doing here. So let's talk about this. I don't know if this is you, but this is 100% me. I've had times in my life where I was able to pull myself up and I'm doing really, really good. Maybe it's in school. Maybe I'm making good grades. Maybe I'm just getting to the point where my abs are starting to show and I'm just getting to the point where I'm starting to make enough money. And then all of a sudden, bam, I'm going to drink 50 beers and have a bunch of really fatty foods and sleep in all day. And I don't know if this is you. This is probably why you clicked on this video. But for whatever reason, it's like you get so close to reaching your goals. And then as soon as you get to the top of the thing, you fucking crash down immediately. And so all this happened like probably about a week ago. I had just built like a bunch of stuff in the company. I just hired a bunch of employees. We were just pumping out stuff. Like we were moving so quickly and, I was working on a bunch of stuff and everything was going so good. And then all of a sudden one night I just decided to go get drunk. And then after that, I just fucking wasted like all my money and like, it was just stupid. That's what happened. And I kept having this happen. So it was like, this is what my on the way up, this is what my success, if that's what you want to call it, has looked like so far. It has been down here, up a bit, and then really far back down. And then it's just like this. It's been curvy. Up like that is how my track record has been in terms of my climb to success. I get 3 steps there, or 1 step forward, 3 steps back. And I kept doing that and I couldn't figure out why I was just so fucking destructive every single time it was time to do something. So if you don't know who I am, my name's Steven. I make this channel for like-minded individuals and entrepreneurs to grow their business, grow their personal brand, and better themselves so that way they can be successful in whatever way they consider themselves to be successful. Whatever success is to you. Success is subjective. So whatever you think successful is, figure it the fuck out and then watch my shit and hopefully it'll help you out. If you like content like this, go ahead and click the subscribe button. We're going to be making content like this all the time. I'm very excited to share this video because I've been wanting to make this for days. But I just wanted to make sure like the invoices got paid before I came on here and started like yapping about what I've done. Because I don't like to come on here and talk about stuff that's not real. So I wanted to make sure I got paid. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to make this video. So I got paid yesterday and I was like, fuck it, we're going to go ahead and do it. Before we get started though, I want to guarantee you something because I want to make this very, very clear. You're either going to take the lessons from this video and you're going to make more money, or you're going to make no money, or somewhere in between. And my guess is you'll probably be more on this spectrum if you actually fucking follow what I do, because what I've done in the last 2 weeks has been sick. Okay? So, like I said, guarantee from this video, I guarantee you'll either make no money, you'll make more money, or somewhere in the middle. So, like that's a guarantee. I will guarantee that. But you'll be closer over here if you take the lessons that I'm going to be talking about in this video. So this is gonna be painful too, by the way. This isn't gonna be fun. I learned some of this stuff from Charlie Morgan, who's one of my favorite entrepreneurs and creators. And the stuff that I'm about to go into is really, really deep. So, and I might expose myself low-key a little bit. We're gonna talk about trauma. That's what we're gonna do today. That's the direction that we're heading. And I promise you this is going to come full circle. Again, these are the 3 things I did to 6x my income. So let me explain it. Let me tell you the 3 things, and then let me tell you how it helped me out. So trauma. Trauma is like, I guess I'll use Charlie Morgan's example. Imagine this is you, and you're in the water. Like you're in like pretty decently high water. Like your feet aren't touching the ground. And I'm on the land over here, and I throw you a beach ball. So like, here's the beach ball, I just threw it, and then you catch it. And what ends up happening is, once you catch that beach ball, it's kind of a crappy beach ball, but I hope you get my point. Maybe we can make it look a bit nicer. There we go, that's my beach ball. So, you catch the beach ball, and once you catch the beach ball, you push it underneath the water, right? And we've all pushed a beach ball underneath the water before. You know what happens when you do that, right? You have to hold it there. Because if the beach ball comes up, because if you don't hold it there, the beach ball will come up. Sorry. You catch the beach ball and you put it underwater, right? That's a really big one, but you get my point, right? You hold it underwater. So I throw another beach ball at you, right? And once I throw the second beach ball at you, you catch it and you palm it and you hold it underwater. So now you have 2 beach balls under the water, right? Well, what happens when I throw the third beach ball at you? Well, when I throw the third beach ball, you go to catch it and the other 2 beach balls come out of the water. And so let's replace these beach balls with trauma, right? And so that's all this is. That's all the message that Charlie Morgan used with his analogy, and I fucking love it, is that this is trauma. These beach balls are trauma. So you're holding down your trauma. When something else big comes and hits you in the face, you panic. And the beach balls come up and you fucking explode. And this has happened in my life before, where I was doing really, really well. Everything was going so fucking good. And then another beach ball got thrown at me, and I fucking panicked, and I didn't know what to do. And so I freaked out. And see what happens is those beach balls, those are traumatic experiences, which your brain does whenever you have a traumatic experience. It takes a snapshot of who you are in that moment, and then it buries it deep within your fucking psyche. One time a couple years ago, I had a very, very traumatic experience happen. I'm not going to mention exactly what had happened, but I will tell you there were a few things involved in that. All right, so here were just a couple of character traits that had happened. This was the person I was during this traumatic experience, right? Here's actually the one that really helped me figure out who the fuck I am, right? Trapped. That was a big one. Unhappy, anxious, paranoid, addict. I was an addict. Lazy and arrogant. When this traumatic experience had happened, I had taken all these emotions, or I guess these character traits, and buried them deep within my psyche, and taken a snapshot of who I was, and my brain said, this is who you are. These are the character traits that align with the person that you are. Okay? And there's plenty more, but these are just the ones I can think of. This was the big one, and I'm going to come back to that one very, very soon. This is how we figure this shit out. This is how we dive into the trauma, and we use that trauma to make ourselves better. There's a quote from Carl Jung, and I absolutely love it, and it is, until you make the unconscious conscious, it'll control you, and you'll call it fate. Right? I'll say it again. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it'll control you, and you will call it fate. This wasn't conscious until a week ago, or 2 weeks ago. And so I wasn't able to fix these fucking problems because they weren't in my conscious mind. And I'm going to show you how I figured out how I was this person. Okay? Why I was this person. Okay? And how I was able to overcome that. And that's the sick thing about all this, is that realistically, I mean, you have a mind and a body, and like you have all this time. And so it's really in this past that you have no fucking clue how it works. Like the best thing you can do is just sit down and figure it the fuck out. Like it's really interesting when you start figuring this shit out. It's really interesting and it helps you. And so these were the character traits that align with me. And I'm going to explain exactly how I found that with these 3 steps here, with the 3 steps. Again, that helped me make more money. And the reason why this helped me make more money, I guess I haven't really said that, is because I was able to find out like those snapshots, that snapshot I was creating of those character traits. Whenever I would get to a point where I was just about to surpass the person I am today and get to a better point, or like, I was just about to get to a point where things were going well, my brain would say, nope, you're that person, right? You're anxious, you're trapped, you're lazy, you're an addict. And then it would fucking push me back down into the dirt. And it would continue to do that. Every single time I got into that peak, like I was talking about at the beginning of the video, I would get pushed right back down by my brain because my brain still thought I was arrogant, lazy, trapped, and fucking emotional and all that shit. I'm gonna tell you in order exactly how I did everything. The first thing that I did was find trauma. So I actually thought that a lot of this had stemmed from that original situation I was talking about here in this picture. Basically, when I hit rock bottom in my life, I thought that was my trauma. Okay, I thought that was the person that I was. I thought that the person I am today is what stemmed from that. I thought it stemmed from this trauma that had happened in my life. Really fucking wrong in that, actually, because I didn't realize until after I did a lot of this deep thinking that there was actually stuff that had happened in my childhood that I wouldn't even call trauma necessarily, but parts of me and parts of the person that I was that built me into the person I am today. That like I have a YouTube channel now because of things that happened when I was younger. I have a business now because of things that happened when I was younger. Not because, like, sure, when I had this rock bottom moment in my life, yeah, that was pretty fucking big too. But I thought it stopped there. It doesn't. If you dig back deep, and it's not to say I had a bad childhood or anything, or like anyone was particularly mean to me or I got bullied. I didn't. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I might have been the bully when I was younger. But with that being said, I had to fucking go back and figure out why did I act that way. And so when I did this step 1, when I found the trauma, these were the things that I did. I don't remember where I originally heard this, but I asked why 5 times, right? So, and this is another example too. If you want to look for trauma, this is a really easy way to fucking find it. Okay. And I learned this from Robert Greene, is go and look at little micro expressions in your life and little things that happen in your life and figure out why you act a certain way. right? So for the longest time, this is actually really interesting. And I can't believe I'm saying this on camera, but for the longest time, anytime someone would ask me, what do you do for work? I would say, oh, well, I run a marketing agent, or I started a marketing agency. And then I would like roll my eyes, kind of like, or not roll my eyes, but just look away. So I'd be like, oh yeah, I started a marketing agency, but it's not doing that well. It's not doing that great. Like immediately I would just go into like talking about how I wasn't making that much money. And I didn't realize why I did that until more recently. And I realized it was because I actually wasn't doing too well, but my status, my belief system was set up in a way to where I had to be making a lot of money for this person to accept me. So I would just be honest instead and be like, oh, I'm not making that much money. Right. Still, I mean, it's still a feat, right? It's still pretty sick. Like I run a marketing company at 21 years old, or I guess 22 now, and I don't have a day job. Like I think that's pretty sick, you know? And people are still like, bro, that's super cool, you know? But I would sit there and kind of just like shrug my shoulders and be scared to tell people about it. And so I noticed that was one thing that I noticed. I was like, why is it that every single time you talk to somebody and tell them what you do, you like freak out and like look up at the ceiling and you don't know what to do or what to say? And I realized that's why. It's because I have this weird success drive and I feel like I'm not successful, you know? And so I dove into that. Why don't I feel successful? Because of this. Well, why? Right? And I kept asking why about those questions. So when you're finding trauma, I'm going to write down the two things you need to do here. But there's obvious trauma moments. Like there's moments that it happens, and then there's micro expressions. And I make sure my dad can fucking read this shit. Can you read that? All right. Gosh. All right. Moments and micro expressions. How I acted I mean, like there was one time, even I think it was the same weekend I was doing this stuff, or maybe it was like a weekend before. I had this situation where I'd walked into this room full of people, and I saw like a specific group of people that I did not even know, and I just like my heart sank, and I didn't know why. And it was like a mix of guys and girls, and I just didn't know that, and I felt weird, and I was like, why do I feel this way? And I realized because there was this level of confidence that I'd still I don't know, like I felt a little weird around these people, and I was like, why? And I started diving into that because of these micro expressions. If you know me in person, I'm a very talkative person. I'm very confident. Like I speak to a lot of people. But for whatever reason, this one day I just felt kind of weird. And then I really thought about it inside of my gut and started asking myself, why did this happen this day? And it was because um, of something that had happened in my past. And it was because of the person that I was before. And so my brain took that snapshot from that trauma, that traumatic experience that I had buried deep within me and said, it's because, you're anxious. You're an anxious person. So bam, there's anxious. There's anxiety. See, I told you you were an anxious person, right? That's what the brain did. It sucks, bro. When you start to do this shit, like if you might cry. I don't know. Like I didn't, I didn't, but because I'm kind of over this shit now, but it still fucking affects me day to day. And that's the crazy part about all this, man. So the second part is to meditate. So number 2 is meditate. And so I would write this shit down. So when you find this trauma, write it down. So, or I mean, you don't have to, but like that's what I did. So I actually wrote it on this whiteboard right here, and I wrote it on this whiteboard right here, and I sat in my desk chair and just like looked, and I would just look at it. I would just look at it and sit there, and then I would think, oh, I have like an aha moment, and I'd come in and I'd write more things happen. So meditate, write, walk, think. Right, maybe go on a walk. I did go on a few walks. I want to make this very fucking clear that I actually did this over the span of like 5 or 6 hours for 2 days. Like a whole weekend I designated to this for about 3 to 4 hours a day, maybe. Something like that. And I'll tell you, like I went on walks. I fucking sat in my chair and I stared at this whiteboard where I had literally written out my life and everything that had happened to me. I like meditated, like I actually meditated over it. I like basically sat in bed thinking about it. Like I almost like I was sleeping. I was dreaming about it for days and days and days. You gotta spend time meditating this stuff. You gotta think about it. Why do I act this way? I really started digging into like my psyche, and like I started, one of the big things too is like my relationships with my ex-girlfriends. Like why were they the way they were? Why'd I choose these girls? And so I started like digging into some of that, and I started looking into my childhood and like, okay, I had friends that like they had things happen to them and I wanted the same approval that they got, so I did some of the same things. It's like wild the direction that you go into when you really start to fucking dive into your psyche. And that's exactly what was happening here. And step 3, and this is the hardest part. And that's acceptance. How do we do this? Now, this is the main thing that I got from Charlie Morgan. Is we bring ourselves back to the trauma. So we bring ourselves back to the trauma. And how do we do that? The way I did it was I sat in my chair and I went and found a song on my phone that reminded me of a traumatic experience in my life. And I played that song. And I sat in my chair and I listened to the song like over and over again. And I sat in my chair and just closed my eyes and envisioned that I was in the same room when everything happened. I envisioned where I was and what was going on and the emotions that I had and the people that were in my life and the lifestyle I was living. And I started to bring the burden back onto myself, right? With my eyes closed, and imagine I was in that room again with all the shit happening, right? And in my head, I said, this isn't you anymore. You're not this person. It's all gone. Like, you fixed it. You're not this anymore. And so that at that point, my brain was able to get rid of that snapshot of the person that I was when I had originally felt the trauma and go on to do good things. Remember how I said I would come back to the trapped part from the beginning of the video, or that trapped character trait? I felt trapped. And what had actually happened before I had fucked everything up like 2 weeks ago, I was on the up. I was doing a great job. Everything was going great. And then it just started to get sunny outside and the weather started to get nice. And I was like, man, it would be so sick to be by some water or like poolside with a margarita. Then I started letting that get into my head. And so it ended up happening. That's resistance, by the way. That's a form of resistance. My brain started to resist the person I was becoming. And so what ended up happening was I fucking destroyed everything so I could go get drunk one night so I could have that little bit of a feeling because I let that come into my head. And so now I know, like, this happened to me like literally yesterday or 2 days ago. And I know to stop because I made some money. And I was like, this is pretty fucking sick. And then I said, well, let me go out and do stupid shit. And as soon as I thought that, I realized, okay, this is what happened. This is what happened last time. And this is why you fucked up. So don't do that again. You know better this time. I know better now. But I didn't know last time. And I didn't know all the times before that too. There were plenty of times where I had doubled my revenue. And then I fucking sat on it for months and months and months until shit started to hit the fan and I started to lose some of that money. And then that's when I really kicked it into 12th gear. I've 3x since then. Since that specific day. Right? And I know better now. I know better. I'm not gonna fucking sit here and bullshit. I got YouTube videos to make. I got sales calls to do. I got people to feed. I got shit to do. And so I'm not gonna give up now. But I didn't know that in the past. And so I felt trapped. And now I don't feel trapped anymore. I feel fucking amazing. Find the trauma, meditate over it, and then go back and accept it. And why is this important? Remember, I said you have a mind and a body and use it. And a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people sit there and watch fucking Netflix and scroll through TikTok and they'll never use their mind. If you watch this video this far, you're probably someone that uses their fucking mind regularly. So use it, man. Dig into your past and figure out who you were. And obviously, you're probably wondering how that helped me make more money. Well, after I'd spent 2 days, 3 days going over the trauma and meditating over it and accepting it, that week I was approached yet again with another decision that I had been putting off for months and months at a time. And that decision was switch to a different niche. The niche I was working in, the people that I was helping before was car detailers. And the problem that I had in that space was a lot of these guys didn't want to become CEOs. They didn't want to grow their businesses. They didn't want to make serious progress in their company. And so these guys weren't willing to use my service and they didn't want my service because they didn't need it. And so I had a mentor of mine say, hey, bro, I think you should switch to a different niche. And for months, I've been brought this question. This had come to me for months at a time. People had said this to me over and over again. I didn't listen. But then as soon as I was able to fix this, I was able to fix my brain when I was able to find my trauma. When someone said, hey, bro, you should do this thing. You should go into construction. And I was faced with that decision again. Guess what I did immediately right after it happened? Of course I should make that decision. You're right. Of course it's a good decision. There's more money in that space. There's more people in that space. There's more people to help out. There's more opportunity. Of course that's a decision, right? But before, I didn't know any better. And before, I needed to fix my brain first. And once I was able to make that decision, I went into construction. I started closing more deals. I started making more progress in the right direction. I started actually doing better things for my clients too. And so that's why it's so important. Remember, I said this in the beginning. Carl Jung, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will control you and you will call it fate. And I thought that I had a fear of rejection and that I had a lack of confidence and that I was an anxious person, that I was trapped, right? And I had to go back to that place that I was, that person that I was when I had that trauma, and say, hey man, it's okay now. You're no longer this way. And I don't feel trapped anymore. I have now broken off the layers of trapped that I had. I was trapped by beliefs. I was trapped by um, my business, my niche. I was trapped by my my thoughts that I was still that same guy who couldn't control his emotions and couldn't build something that was big. And I thought I was that person. So I kept destroying myself over and over and over again. I kept losing over and over. And finally, one day, I went and did these things, and that stopped happening. And I swear to you, I've never felt better in my entire life. Let me make that very clear. I'll say it again. I have never felt better in my entire life than I have in the last week. And it has nothing to do with the sales I've closed. It has nothing to do with any of that stuff, with the business. It has to do with this, because I figured out what my problems were, so I was able to make proper decisions. It's like I cleared out all the junk. It's like, imagine if you were eating unhealthy foods and then you were trying to make a good decision. It's the same thing, right? Imagine eating 17 donuts and then someone comes to you and asks you a big decision, right? Of course you're not going to fucking make the right decision. Of course, because you're eating like shit. And so this is the mental eating that we have to do. This is how we clear our minds. And so as a business owner, you can grow your company by just figuring out what your problems are and then fixing them and believing in yourself. And that's what I did. And that's how I was able to take my revenue from where I was before to where I am now in literally just 3 or 4 days. 3 or 4 days, I was able to 6x my revenue. Just because I made this one, I did this, I sat down for 5, 6 hours and put myself in a dark place. So I think it's worth it. So I would try it out. If you like this video, leave a like, subscribe, and also if you are a contractor and you are looking to get extra jobs in your calendar every single month, click the link below, fill out the form, and I will see you very soon. See what we can do to help you out. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day. Stop scrolling on social media because that shit is awful for you, and it's literally preventing you from fucking solving the problem. If you are fucking yourself by not doing the work required, and you are scrolling on Instagram and you're scrolling on TikTok, then it's probably because you haven't taken care of this stuff. If you're watching this video as a way to cope for not doing the thing that you need to do, you probably just need to do this shit. Simple.